seems to me that the basic strategy we should employ and this again is a question that always comes up, what sort of strategy? Seems to me the basic strategy is to keep the ideas aloft of our ultimate goal, ultimate principle, and try to achieve them and try to get toward it as fast as possible. This would seem to be almost banal, but it seems to be a controversial in the movement. There are two, the Marxists work this out. The Marxists are very good strategic theorists. But as a matter of fact, before they started collapsing about a few years ago, they spent most of their time arguing about strategy, not about principle or whatever, but simply how to approach, how to change the world, how to take a situation which they were very much opposed to and how to bring about a very different one. And the Marxists identified two basic deviations, so to speak, two basic erroneous strategies, and I would endorse this with, of course, a different twist. One is what they call opportunism, which I think is often rampant in the movement. And what happens there, I've seen this happen in many libertarian organizations, because I've been around the movement for about 43 years I've been a libertarian. Good God. At any rate, what happens is, your goal is to advance the ideas of liberty. That's the objective, okay? And you want to do it as rapidly as possible and as effectively as possible. And so you try to build an organization which will accomplish that. And what begins to happen, sometimes very quickly, and other times after a long period of time, it begins to happen as subtle or sometimes sudden shift of emphasis. So the ends become the means become the end. The objective, which had been advancing liberty, now becomes keeping the organization going, keeping the payrolls going. And so, then you change the output in order to maximize your input, so to speak. So the ends and means are transposed. As my friend Wally Harper used to say, one of my early mentors in the movement, that is when the organization takes on the dimensions of a racket. You claim you're advancing freedom. Instead of that, you're simply building your own salaries. So that's one problem that keeps popping up. Only eternal vigilance and realizing the problem, I think, can stop it. The other problem is sort of the opposite problem, which is Marxists called sectarianism. In other words, only saying, okay, we want only talking about the ultimate goal and never talking about any kind of transition to it. I think the most extreme example of that is the old, fairly lovable socialist party called the Socialist Labor Party. I don't know if anybody here has heard of it. For good reason, nobody's ever heard of it. But at any rate, the Socialist Labor Party has been in existence since about 1890 or so. They've gotten no place, and their strategic outlook is simply to publish one pamphlet, and the one pamphlet has different headlines. They keep up to date. Their outreach program is to change the title. In other words, they'll say, "Are you worried about?" Are you worried about nuclear war, pollution, unemployment, whatever the situation is? Then they reprint the same pamphlet, and the answer is socialism. Scrap capitalism and on to socialism. That's it. It's the pamphlet. So it hasn't been very effective. It doesn't really grab. It's not a grabber. Okay. And there are a lot of libertarians, I think, who tend to have that same emphasis. Okay, smash the state. That's it, and without any kind of intervening analysis. Okay. Well, how do we? So what do I think is the correct strategy, so to speak? I think the correct strategy is to hold the ultimate goal objective, always keep it in mind, and then offer what the Marxists call transition programs. Okay. So the transition program to a taxless United States is abolishing the income tax. It's a good, solid transition program. Go for that. Been willing to live with that for a few years before pressing on. So that's the transition program. However, there are a couple of important criteria for transition program. One, it should be consistent with the objective, with the goal. Okay, I think it's very important. This is what liberals mean when they say the means should not contradict the ends. I think it's clumsily worded, but basically it's that you advance a transition program and shouldn't undercut the ultimate objective. So you don't, for example, if you want to abolish the income tax, you don't say we should have a huge sales tax, because first of all, what usually happens, you have both. You wind up with both. See, our objective is not to help the state along and try to advance this program. Our objective is to try to whittle it down. Okay, so that's one thing. Should any proposals advanced should not contradict the ultimate objective. And the second thing, the means should be pretty radical. Okay, the transition program shouldn't be so moderate that everybody snoozes off. I have a couple of examples from the early days of the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party really first flourished in New York City, the heartland, of course, of Libertarianism, as we all know. With a stunning mayoralty race in 1973, Fran Youngstein got 9,000 votes or something, which was great for that time. And so, buoyed up by this resurgence, they decided to run for governor the next year. Jerry Tuccilli ran for governor. They decided on a soft core program, because they really thought they were going to either win or at least get a lot of votes. You have to appeal to the public. Soft core program. So Tuccilli, I forget who the other turkeys were who ran against them, Democrat or Republican. But at any rate, it was 1974. And Tuccilli's great radical program was we should cut taxes, cut state tax. Well, big deal. I mean, both the Republican and Democrat also said the same thing. So we were stuck with a situation where you have the Republicans and Democrats both saying we should cut taxes. Taxes are too big. And meantime, this radical, crazy new party also says the same thing. What's the point of voting for the radical, crazy new party if they don't offer any alternative? Okay, so naturally, there was a big flopperoo and lots of hysteria coming out of it, and Tuccilli left the party shortly thereafter, a disillusioned, broken man. And the New York party has been declining ever since. I mean, every year it gets fewer votes. But at any rate, there's no point in selling out in that manner because you don't offer an alternative. There's no point in calling for 2% income tax cut, things like that. And there were many great things about the Clark campaign in 1980, but the content was not one of them. The content was Clark offered the big centerpiece of the Clark campaign, which is very well funded, and a lot of TV ads, which you haven't had since. The centerpiece of the Clark campaign was a 30% income tax cut. Unfortunately, Reagan was saying the same thing. He was also offering a 30% income tax cut. The question is, if a Republican who has a good chance to win offers a 30% cut, and a Libertarian who's a crazy new party also says we're in favor of a 30% cut, who's the average anti-tax person going to vote for? Well, the answer is obvious. It ain't us. So that's the sort of thing. We have to offer a clear-cut, radical alternative to the existing system to give people a reason to vote for us, to break their habits of a lifetime and vote for some kooky new party. Okay, so that's, I think, the strategic guidelines there.